And welcome back. Now, according to Wonderkop Land Claims Committee documents, Wonderkop, now known as Marikana, was bought by families who all contributed £12 per family towards the purchase of the farm Wonderkop. The land was bought for £4,500 that was payable in 5-year installments, and a title deed was issued on the 27th of September 1927. Now, this land was later expropriated by the government of Bophuthatswana on the 17th of April 1989, and the claim is still in court as we speak. Now, with us now is David van Wyk, and David is with the Benchmark Foundation, lead researcher there, and unfortunately our other guest on this particular leg of the conversation running late, but should he be here before the end of this segment, he will join the conversation. But let's get into this. David, thanks so much for coming through. Now, the land of Wonderkop, this is a different angle, you know, honing in on the tragedy, yes, but who does this land belong to? As far as your research goes, what does it tell?
Well, the Ramohanie arrived in that area just after the Bophuthatswana, and they were given land by the Marikana in that particular area in the 19th century already. Come the 20th century, they were afraid that they were going to lose their land because of the 1913 Land Act and the land issues that followed that particular time. And so the families in the area decided that they would have to buy the land in order to protect it from what became apartheid later on. During apartheid, of course, they did lose the land when the Mangope government actually took the land, expropriated the land from them. And so they've got a land claim in now, but they already had agreements with Lonmin as far back as 1968. I've seen the documents myself and so on for the payment of rental and so on. And they're very concerned that by the time of the massacre, they were still being paid around 2,000 or 3,000 rands a year for that land based on 1968 values of the rand and prices and things like that. And they were very concerned that there's this mega mine on their property making billions of rands and they're not getting much out of it at all. And if you go into that area, we did a policy gap research there and we looked at corporate social responsibility of the Lonmin Mining Company, and what we found was that there was complete neglect of that community altogether. You know, there was a vegetable project there for about 120 million rands, but it didn't belong to the community. It belonged to the mine and it belonged to a private manager. And that whole project collapsed eventually and no jobs were created. And as it is with the migrant labor system, very few people in that area actually got jobs on the mine. So in May 2012, long before the massacre, the community actually stopped the mine for 2 weeks, demanding that the mine lives up to its social and labor plan, because it had to get new order rights in 2004, and it applied for new order rights based on a social and labor plan, which simply didn't materialize. The social and labor plan included housing for both mine workers and for the community. It involved this vegetable project. It involved a variety of other projects as well that Lonmin had to actually roll out. Now, the problem for Lonmin was that between 1968 and 2009, the platinum price kept on going up. And by 2008, it actually reached a peak of $2,000 per ounce, which was an awful lot of money. The return on investment for Lonmin at that time was between 25 and 45% for investors. Massive return on investment, massive dividends and so on were paid out. But little money was actually plowed back into the community. And so when the platinum price collapsed in 2009, it became too late to do anything about the social and labor plan. And by 2012, only 3 houses out of something like 5,000 houses that they promised to build were actually built. Only 3 show houses were actually built. What is also concerning is that the AIDC, for example, found that, you know, through transfer pricing and through invoice fraud and so on as well, a lot of the value of the platinum that was actually mined there actually never benefited South Africa as a whole, you know, because they use addresses in tax havens and so on to sell the platinum to the point where by the 2014 strike of AMCU in that particular area, we were concerned that the platinum price did not increase despite the fact that there was a platinum belt strike that took 60% of the platinum out of global circulation. What we discovered was that there were mountains of platinum in Switzerland, and that Switzerland has become the biggest exporter of platinum in the world, even though they don't have a single mine.
Okay, that's quite a lot to take in. Let's start with the social and labour plan that you talk about. Is this over and above the provisions in the mining charter?
Well, the social and labour plan is really part of the mining charter. It's part of the mining charter requirements. You know, the mining charter was an attempt to say, allow mines to self-regulate, because COSATU and NUM and the Communist Party and so on in 2002 put big pressure for mines to be regulated and for things like social and labour plans to be legislated for, you know. And so the mining charter is a voluntary document, and this is the problem with the charter. People can comply, they don't have to comply. And so what you are having is a charter that was set with very low targets. You know, 10% women in employment, for example, is a very low target. The issue of converting hostels into family accommodation and so on, the speed at which these things happened did not happen fast enough. And so what happened was, when they started converting the hostels into family units, they could no longer accommodate the 30,000 workers that they accommodated before, and suddenly people found themselves in informal settlements on Bapu land. So land that the Bapu were ploughing and where they kept their cattle and so on became an enormous squatter camp called Nkaneng. And that squatter camp is right next to the mine hostels of Lonmin. And you can Google Earth any mining operation in South Africa, you'll find these informal settlements where people live on the living out allowance and so on. Now, that living out allowance provided for some income to flow into the Bapu in the form of rent, you know, because people could rent out shacks to mine workers. The living out allowance would be 2,000 rands a month, but the mine worker would spend maybe 400 or 500 rands on the shack and then send the rest home. It was supplemental to the income that they had. And so Bapu agriculture collapsed as a result of that, you know, because now suddenly your agricultural land is really occupied by informal settlers. In any case, the mining operation and the impact of the mining operation undermined agriculture in the entire area, both the tobacco farms, the orange farms, as well as the Bapu cattle farming that was there, you know. So all that the Bapu can rely on now is actually the mine, and the mine is in steep decline. Even though it's changed ownership now, we've looked at the production figures of those mines. It was no longer profitable even as long ago as 2010. You know, so really Sibanye has taken over mines that are not profitable, that are not viable, and we will predict that they will sell eventually as well.
So going back to what you said, the mine was actually paying to the owners of the land 2,000 to 3,000
rands
a year.
That's right. That's right. That was the agreement that they had in 1968. And the thing is that those agreements were never updated with inflation. They were never actually accommodating changes in the economy and so on. And so if David comes here, he will be able to tell you what the situation is with regard to the levels of poverty and so on that they have in their community, the levels of unemployment. And the consequences of that is that people engage with the mine through rental, they engage with the mine through sex work, they engage with the mine through selling alcohol and that sort of thing. That is the income that people are having because the agricultural economy around the mine has effectively collapsed.
And you know, this is a very important tenet of this particular conversation because, again, it speaks to unethical behavior. You spoke about, you know, what the mines were making in their heyday, and yet never saw fit, it's just on an ethical level, you know, on a moral basis, to pay the community what was due to them.
Well, look, between 2004 and 2009, the platinum price increased by 400%. Okay, so there was a massive boom during that particular period. And the reason why we're also having a crisis with platinum is because people thought the boom would never end. So they exported platinum on a massive scale in an uncontrolled way, so that you actually have now a situation of an oversupply of platinum on the market that they cannot actually get rid of. And this is why the platinum price cannot rise above 800 US dollars an ounce.
So we're joined now by the chairperson of the Wonderkop Land Claim Committee, David. David, is it David Ramohanie?
Yes.
Thanks so much for joining us. So we've been talking about, the land, Wonderkop, and also what has happened since. But you, the chairperson of the committee, you claiming the land. So which land are you claiming exactly, and on whose behalf?
Oh, thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. The land that we are claiming, actually, it's called Wonderkop 100 JQ. The land was bought on the 17th of September 1927. It was bought by families that actually were relocated from Hartbeespoort Dam through the irrigation scheme. So those particular families were coming from Wonderboom, others from Heidelberg, others from Vereeniging. So they had to contribute £12 per family for the purchase of that particular land. So it took them 5 years to contribute actually the amount of money, which was £4,500. So each and every year they had to contribute £900 towards the amount that makes £4,500. So after they've contributed the £4,500, then the title deed was issued in their name. That particular land is called Wonderkop. It is where actually the massacre took place in Marikana.
So how many families are we talking about in this claim?
We're talking about more than 100 families that purchased that particular land. So the chief, by the time, didn't have the money to buy the land, then he had to call actually families from different areas that forms the part and parcel of the Bapho tribe to buy that particular land.
So David was explaining to us, David van Wyk, about the expropriation by the then Bophuthatswana government. So where is your claim at the moment?
The claim right now, we are at the Randburg Land Claims Court. What has happened is that after we've launched the claim was found to be valid, and it was gazetted. And then around 2007, towards the end of the year, we were on the verge of being given the title deed. There were an objection from the Traditional Council of Ramohanie to say we cannot be given the title deed. So we started the court proceedings around 2008, early March, until to date. So we won the first round actually in the Randburg Land Claims Court. So they actually tried to appeal the matter to the Supreme Court of Appeal. The Supreme Court of Appeal also won the case. The matter was referred back to the Randburg Land Claims Court for finalization. So we are still awaiting for the Judge President to give us a date so that we should settle the matter. So right now what has happened is that the very same Bamohali Traditional Council, they didn't file actually the answering affidavit. So right now we have applied to the court, so they've been barred. So we are just waiting for the court date so that there must be deliberations.
Just in the matter of interest, what exactly are they objecting to?
They are objecting that you should get the land. You must understand that that particular land is very rich in as far as platinum resources are concerned. So they are objecting that if they lose that particular land that has been bought by the families that have alluded to, they are going to lose actually a lot of wealth. That is the problem. So, but it is not the only land claim that have been lost. There are certain land claims that have been lost. Like Skapkral, I'm the claimant of Skapkral. That land actually has been brought back, has been restituted. And also other lands like the Hartbeespoort Dam, those particular lands have been restituted. There's actually a CPA that has been established called the Hotsube Watoto, which is the area where there is career port and other portions of from the Bophuthatswana. But they are not objecting to that because those particular portions of land, they are not rich in as far as minerals are concerned. This one of Wonderkop, it has got a lot of minerals. Your PGMs actually and your base metals. Your chrome, there's a lot of chrome also there. Hence the Traditional Council is objecting to that particular claim.
So if I can just check, we're coming up to news time. If both of you actually do have some time, where we can just pick up this conversation again after the news. That is, if it is okay with both of you.
Definitely.
All right, thanks so much. David Ramohanie and David van Wyk will stay with us and we'll continue talking about this claim, the land of Wonderkop, and this is in Marikana, and that infamous copy where the massacre took place. And there's a land claim that's currently before the courts with regard to that, and we'll talk more about what's happened with this land after the news with Leanne.